Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 63, cover date of February 1991. The cover is by Whilce Portacio, inked by Art Thibert, and this is Portacio's first issue on the X Factor series. He was intended to be the ongoing artist, the first ongoing artist since Louise Simonson left with issue number 39. Paul Smith did do a longish run in the 50s of the series, but this is coming right after Extinction Agenda. This is the first issue after John Bogdanov's 3 issues of Extinction Agenda. I like the new corner box as well with the 5 original X-Men there. We've got new uniform designs, blue and gold for Cyclops and Jean Grey. Also Cyclops there for the first time, a uniform design without the skull cap, so he's got his hair out free in that one, and that's something that Jim Lee would stick with in his redesign of Cyclops' costume in a few months' time, about roughly 9 months' time on from this, or actually maybe only even 8 months' time on for X-Men number 1. So a really dynamic cover here, very interesting design with everything going at an acute angle left to right. And other commentators have made the point, and I've seen the point made very often, that Whilce Portacio does a really great Iceman. He's doing some original things in terms of representing Iceman using his power, most particularly this kind of circle around his hand with the ice flying off. So you see it there on his left hand and on his right hand as well. So it's an interesting effect. Also, I just like the kind of logic of this. One of these cyber ninjas, we'll meet them inside in the issue, firing a laser blast and it punching through the front part of Iceman's slide. So I like that too. And another directional device kind of delineating a triangle there on the cover. So really nice work, and of course Iceman there holding on to his Japanese girlfriend Opal. Let's open this one up to the first page, and it begins in Manhattan, and there is a lot of work on the pages throughout this issue. Portacio coming over from the Punisher and definitely doing his very best work on this particular comic, really laying out his stall in terms of his abilities. And so we've got quite a crowded panel there with the Santa Claus and the child there and background characters and the delineation of the skyscrapers there in Midtown Manhattan. And I also like the detail of the height differential between, this is Bobby Drake and Opal Tanaka here, the height differential between them, quite thoughtful and realistic on Portacio's part. So they've got reservations for a dinner date, and Opal is happy about that because something went wrong. Well, she's remember the first time you asked me out to dinner? Yeah, it was late, nothing was open, we ended up back at my loft, she says, and she was gonna maybe divulge some romantic goings on between the two, but then she's interrupted, and this kind of ties into the major story line developing in this particular issue. This couple here on the sidewalk, she thinks she recognizes them for a second, and she says, I thought, but no, they just kind of look like them, come on. That's a really nice top-down angle here on the corner of the sidewalk, and the open border of the panel as well, so no border on the panel. That is a Portacio layout speciality. We'll see some more of those in this particular issue. Very interesting layouts, thoughtful layouts from Portacio throughout this issue. So Opal explains, no, I was shocked, that's all. I thought that couple were the people that I believed were my parents until somebody sent me my birth and immigration certificates and my adoption papers from Japan. And we get an editorial note here from Bob Harris that it happened in X Factor 59. So at the end of that issue, Opal opened up a post mail package, and this is now the reveal in terms of what was in there. So this is the first that Bobby's heard of it. He says he's sorry, and she says, so am I. They always made such a point about trust, about me always telling the truth. And all along, they lied to me. They let me believe I was their real daughter. And The work here on Opal's face leads me to believe that Portacio might have been working with some photo reference or a photo model for Opal's face. It looks very, very naturalistic. And there are other faces in the issue as well that lead me to believe he was working with photo reference as well. So here we are. We've got a double page spread here, double page half spread. And the title of the story, Family. The creative team here, Louise Simonson, plot and writer, and Whilce Portacio, plot and artist. So Portacio coming on his first issue, co-plotting this with the regular writer, Louise Simonson, Michael Heisler, letterer, Glynis Oliver, colorist, and then there's a special thanks to Kimson Againa and special assist Homage Studios. So it's towards the end of this issue that I see Portacio probably relying on some assistance from Homage Studios. Don't know who Kimson Againa is. Maybe he was getting some background assists from that person, because there's a lot of background detail and work in this issue. Very impressive. So they enter into a lift. They go up to the top floor, the reception area of the restaurant, and the reservation, of course, is made, and they're being seated at their table when crackle, fizz, pop, in arrive these cyberpunk ninjas. And this is quite a cool double page half spread. Bobby getting punched in the jaw there, whacked. And what I really like here is Portacio is inking himself, so he's penciling and inking. But you get this Kirby crackle in the background, so those black circles, but he's cut in white paint or media into the Kirby crackle, so it makes for a really cool representation of energy and hatching in the black areas as well. It's very, very cool and an interesting technique used by Portacio here. So Opal here, suddenly her dress has changed color, or no, that's not right. She's taken off her red coat. Okay, because I was thinking about that earlier when I was going through the issue, but now I've solved it. So Glynis Oliver not making a coloring mistake there. So let's continue on with the story. The cyberpunk ninjas, they want the girl, they want Opal. Here, this is a really interesting panel as well, where Portacio gives us in the foreground here the reaction of other patrons of the restaurant, and he puts the main figures in the background. Interesting, there's a lot of detail on these characters, and that looks like a self-portrait by Portacio. And who knows who these girls are based on, but they look very, very realistic. And also what's interesting too is the couture, like the design. This is like a comic that he was working on in late 1990, and the fashion is very much of the era as well. So Portacio, a young man at the time, and very tuned into the fashion culture too, and showing it up in the art in this particular issue. So one of these cyberpunk ninjas grabs Bobby and throws him out the window of the top floor restaurant. So of course Opal thinks that he's dead. Interesting here that Louise Simonson is showing Opal's or is writing in Opal's dialogue response, but we don't see her here in these panels. So a little bit of what would I say, like the synergy isn't quite there between writer and artist just yet. And here we have a full view of the ninjas themselves. They're all laughing and enjoying the sport of their abduction of Opal and the killing of, as they might see it from their perspective, her dinner date. Not this guy though, so we need to keep an eye on him. We'll only learn his name at the very end of the issue, and he's a bit different from the other guys. So let's continue. Interesting layouts on this page too. Again, the choice, always an interesting one from Portacio to leave white on the layout of the page. This white corner down here. We've got the borderless panels here as well. You know, it obviously makes for an easier page to draw with very little in the way of backgrounds. The restaurant interior has been established, so the reader is not lost in terms of where this action is taking place. So Opal proves spirited. She's not going to go easily with them. She rips this guy across the face with her fingernails. Those hands are drawn really well. And she rips off this piece of fabric from the front of the guy's armor. There it is there in her hand. And he says in response, and we see now all this whizzing and popping around his limbs, she's no gentle flower, but she can be taught to obey. And then this other guy says, or rather, our mysterious guy here who's of a gentler disposition with Opal says, she is the dragon's grandchild and battle is in her blood. In his secret heart, our Socha will be pleased that she is not afraid to show her claws, and it is his right, not yours, to discipline her pride and to tame her. And then he calls her Miki, which obviously in Japanese means summer beauty. You must now answer your grandfather's summons to return home. And then she's shocked, of course. So she's only recently discovered that she's adopted, and now she's wondering who could her grandfather be, and what indeed is his connection with these lads. So interesting story as it develops. And now, of course, the main characters of the title, we're going to pick up with them shortly. But first of all, we've got this very interesting action page here and DeLuca effect as Bobby's falling from the top floor of the building where the restaurant is, the penthouse floor. And we see here him falling with his mouth open, and then the ice spewing out of his mouth and off the top of his head as well. And then these kind of halos around his hands with the ice flying forth as he makes an ice slide and slides his way back up to the restaurant itself and thinks to himself, they're gone, those cyborg goons. And then he shouts out, Opal, where is she? The girl I was with. So these characters, these other patrons at the restaurant, they were already established earlier. And they recognize him as the mutant called Iceman. Of course, X Factor has a public profile. And basically, the man says the Yakuza took the girl. So he recognized those cyber ninjas as Yakuza, as Japanese gangsters. And Iceman asks Yakuza, what you Americans call gangsters? They disappeared in a flash of light the same way they arrived. Just look at the detail on these characters. This definitely is Portacio drawing himself. He looked like that at the time. And these girls here must be people he knew. They might even, because he had a sister too, sisters. So I wonder, is he drawing his own sisters in there, or cousins, or I don't know, but it's so carefully drawn. And remember, he's penciling and inking himself. It looks really great. And then they explain what this is, that Opal ripped off the armor of one of the cyberpunk ninjas. This is their mom, so that's a Japanese technical term, their family crest. The girl ripped it from their clothes when she fought them. They said they had been sent to bring her home. So now Bobby has a clue as to where Opal might have been kidnapped to. And so our scene switches to X Factor's sentient ship headquarters. And here we get a good look at the new uniforms that they're wearing. So Cyclops, as I said earlier, with his hair out, no skull cap. And so the colors here are supposed to be blue and gold. And you can see the orange cut in there to the yellow on Jean's side and thigh. So it's supposed to be blue and gold. They look pretty good. They're pretty well, they're pretty good looking designs by Portacio. He's the designer. Also, Jean's kind of straight hair as well. The way that he draws her hair is interesting too. Of course, the Beast doesn't really wear a costume. And Archangel here is still wearing the costume designed by Whilce Simonson way back in the 20s of X Factor, issues 20s. When he was created this way by Apocalypse. And then Iceman tells his teammates that he's going to find out how Opal could have gotten mixed up with the Yakuza. So he goes to her adoptive parents' home in Montclair, New Jersey, or Montclair, maybe that's how it's pronounced in the States. And he has the exact address there. And so the father and mother are out clearing snow from the sidewalk. And then Iceman arrives, kind of alarming them initially, but then they recognize him and they ask him, what's wrong? So he says, I'm afraid, he says, when the adopted father says, Opal said she was seeing you. What is it, lad? Is something wrong? He says, I'm afraid so. Tell me, sir, do you recognize this? So he shows him that mom, that family crest that Opal ripped off. And they recognize it. You can see the couple there recognize it. But again, just the art here makes me think that maybe Portacio is looking at some photo reference. And I like the way that he's able to draw the mother here with some lines, but not overdo it. So she's got those kind of bags under her eyes, a little bit of lines around the mouth and the crow's feet. But it's not overdone, doesn't make her look ugly. It just makes her look like maybe she's around 50 or something like that. So that's pretty good. Now, just look at a panel like this. look at all the detail here, establishing the kitchen of this family, the table with the tablecloth hanging out of it. And what I really like is this. So we've got like a 1-point perspective here that Portacio is using, but just the detail of turning the chair here on the other side to one angle makes it that much more difficult to do that. That's tricky to do, and the fact that he can pull it off indicates his skill with perspective at this point. So then we get a big explanation about the fact that they did indeed adopt Opal, and they were doing so in order to try and protect her. And now we know this is what we secretly feared would happen, that her grandfather would learn of her existence. We tried so hard to hide her, to keep her safe. In our hearts we knew it was a mistake not to tell her the truth about her adoption and her other family, but we were afraid for her and for ourselves. We wanted to protect her. So Opal may have been angry at the beginning of the story, but this is the reason that her adoptive parents didn't tell her about the fact that she was adopted. They were trying to protect her. And the mother continues and she says, Opal's birth mother is my distant cousin. We took care of her in her trouble so long ago, but we couldn't save her. Please, you must help us save Opal. So here is, look at the detail on the hands as well. Definitely Portacio drawing on some photo reference, or looking at his own hands for the drawing there of the knuckles and the skin on the knuckles as well. It's so well done. Yeah, definitely using some life reference or photo reference for that. And there's those dragon claws. As was explained earlier, it represents the dragon's claws grasping all the world firmly in its hand. So the ambition of this Yakuza family. Let's continue with the story. We go to Japan. Look at the work on this page. Again, another great establishing shot. Got a top-down angle here on this decking out into this Japanese garden. Lots of detail there. And then this beautiful borderless panel of Opal in her traditional Japanese dress there, with the detail of the flowers on the woven into the cloth as well. Maybe it's silk, maybe it's a kimono that she's wearing specifically. Just such a lot of detail. Portacio obviously spending time over this and enjoying it. And even like the detail on her grandfather as well, those big bushy dark eyebrows as well. So he tells he's telling Opal to sit down, and then he's telling the serving ladies to make her sit down, and then he continues here. He says, that is better. Now you will listen. I brought you here so that you can wed and give me a grandson, an heir to my fortune. I have selected these men from among my lieutenants, my oyabun, each of whom would make an acceptable husband. It's the cyberpunks from the restaurant. And because you are my granddaughter, and because I've seen that forced alliances are not always happy ones, I'm indulgent. I will allow you to choose your mate from among these 5. So he's very big-hearted altogether, yes? And that's a really cool shot of them as well. And of course, our mysterious, different guy out here doesn't have a big grin on his face, doesn't look as cock-a-hoop sure of himself as the other guys here. Interesting stuff, but a lot of work on the page. I like the way that Opal's forced down onto the decking here in front of the table. Just the way that's drawn, and the expression on her face and profile as well is really well done. So let's continue, and now we've got a classic Glynis Oliver trope here, where we've got this moment of emotional outburst. And the grandfather here, who's enraged that Opal's defiance is coloured in red. We see that snarl on his face as well. And he says who is this middle-aged woman here sitting at the table as well? He turns to her and he says, you see how she behaves? Though I should be grateful that she speaks her own language so well, this is what became of your and my son's foolishness. Instruct her in her duty, woman. So now the woman speaks and says, this is what became of your insistence on the old ways, Tatsuo-san. Persist, and you will drive her from you as you drove away your son. That's a great expression on his face there. I love the detail of the buckling there on his chin as he's struggling with his anger. And he's he's trying to hold in his temper there. And just that bubbling there on his chin, so well done. And then, what an amazing face there on Opal as well. Also that body language there, she turns and listens to the woman. But that has got to be photo-referenced. It's got to be photo-referenced. It's so well done. Looks so good. And again, Portacio, very well judging the use of lines just to indicate, the 20 years plus on this older woman here, right beside Opal. But this is a family portrait album. It's the grandfather, and as it turns out, Opal's mother. My name is I've got to get the pronunciation right. Shizuko. I am your mother, she says as she looks down. So we've got generations here. This guy, his daughter, and now his granddaughter. And he's looking for, he calls it grandson, but of course it's going to be a great-great-grandson. He's got dynastic ambition. So now we turn over the page. And by the way, look on these two pages. Again, Portacio, really confident in his use of the open blank spaces on the page. And it really helps the eye follow the storytelling of the panels. And another Portacio speciality as well, the jagged border, either done in with marker or brush, indicating a moment of action or emotional outburst. But now we're back in New York, aboard X Factor's sentient ship, and Simonson here is setting up the subsequent storyline. Ship seems to be malfunctioning. Beast is concerned about it, and he says here, "Look, Bobby, if ship is malfunctioning, there might be a problem with the shuttle over here. Why not wait for us to check it out and we'll all go together? Opal's kidnappers might be more than you can handle by yourself." So Iceman here says, "Look, guys, I've already contacted Mariko in Japan." That is Logan's, Wolverine's ex-fiancée, former fiancée, Mariko Yashida. "What is this anyway?" he says then. "You think I can't manage without you?" Because of course, Bobby Drake is the youngest of the original X-Men. And now Jean arrives and says, "No, but we'd feel awfully guilty if we let you go alone." And she says to him, "What do you say, Bobby? Let us come with you, please. Or let me come with you, please." So Iceman says, "To tell you the truth, Jeannie, I could use the company. Now let's get out of here before these other guys insist on crowding into the shuttle too." That's an interesting shot there because it shows that Jean Grey is taller than Bobby Drake. I never would have thought that before, but intriguing. And Portacio stays consistent with that decision to make Jean taller than Bobby. You can see it here in this panel too. Now again, look at the amazing work here. Japan, site of a tragic battle between Mariko's father, that was Shingen, and the X-Man Wolverine that left the lady Mariko Yashida, the reluctant lord of the Yakuza clan Yashida. So that was that all happened in the Wolverine miniseries, the original miniseries, Chris Claremont and Frank Miller, and especially issue number 4. The past years, she's battled to reshape her clan's focus in a desperate attempt to reconcile her loyalty to her family with her need to do what is morally right. So again, tying into this theme of family, it's not just Opal's family that is getting picked up on here by Simonson, but also Mariko's family duty and loyalty as well. Interesting. The strain shows in her face, and yet she greets her visitors graciously. It's an interesting little bit here as well, where Mariko says, when she's greeting the two, she says, "The woman, that Logan, all of you thought dead. I'm glad to be able to welcome you to my home." So that is Jean Grey. So Iceman introduces Mariko to Jean Grey, and then this is good from Simonson, where she has Mariko think she's beautiful. It's no wonder that Logan once loved her. And then this is fantastic, this bit here, where Jean is thinking, she's so small and unassuming, yet she has such tragic nobility. No wonder she once won Wolverine's heart. Interesting that. And Jean thinking of Logan by his codename Wolverine, and Mariko thinking of Wolverine by his personal name, Logan. Interesting little details from Simonson there in her script. So then Mariko says, when she sees the mon that Bobby gives her, she says, "The mon of the Tatsu clan, Their dragon lord clawed his way up through the ranks to leadership and has kept his place through aggression and cunning. He won't be easy to he won't be eager, rather, to release his prey. So Jean says, Bobby, this old man, evil and corrupt as he may be, surely won't harm his own granddaughter. And Iceman says, if his intentions were fair and honourable, pretty lady, he wouldn't have kidnapped her. So there you go. And now we switch scenes to the home of Clan Tatsu. And there he is himself, the boss man, the grandfather of Opal. And he gives instructions. These girls of good families are to be your chaperones and examples of how well brought up young ladies should behave. Learn from them, granddaughter. So they keep calling her Mickey, Beautiful Summer, or Summer Beauty. The Oyabun have begun their practice. We've been given permission to watch. And Opal just isn't on board with any of this at all. She says, permission, it's more like a royal command. And for your information, my name is Opal. If you want me to come with you, you will call me that. So here are the Oyabun, the cyberpunk ninjas with their dragon tattoos all down the sides of their bodies, fighting in the dojo. And Opal just isn't impressed at all. She says, these guys are monsters. I wouldn't choose one of them if they were the last men on earth. They make me sick. She runs away. Just look at all the detail with the traditional costumes as well. And the sandals, those Japanese sandals that Opal is wearing there. Great work. Interesting flourish here by Portacio in respect to the background. Doesn't leave it open white. Chooses to put in this marker or brush to give it a little bit of background there. As one of the Oyabun, the thoughtful, quiet one, comes up and grabs, but gently, Opal by the arm and says, wait. He says that, she asks him, have you come to torment me again? He says, to teach you your duty and to make clear to you the consequences of your continued disobedience. Now, Opal says she knows the consequences, but she's just thinking of herself and if she would be punished. But he clears it up for her and says, do you? At present, your grandfather is treating you like a beloved child, giving you teachers and the opportunity to learn. When you do not, he will assume that your teachers are at fault and he will have them beaten. That's so interesting. I like that. It kind of shows that there's a whole complex situation here, and Opal has her perspective, but he has his perspective too, and he's got an honorable perspective on things. He isn't like the other Oyabun. Opal here is feeling sorry for herself. She thinks, that old man can't be my grandfather. Birth certificates can be forged. And yet, why would he go to all this trouble unless it's true? So she thinks, oh, Bobby, I need you to come for me. I need you to save me. But then she has a fresh thought again, because, of course, as far as she's concerned, maybe he could be dead. So she says, I'll pretend, I think to herself, she thinks, I'll pretend to be an exemplary pupil, even fake an interest in his mechanical marvels. I'll lull his suspicions, and at the very first opportunity, I will escape. And again, I think there's a little bit of photo reference going on there for that close-up on Opal's face. And then here we have Mariko's scheme for getting Opal away from from her grandfather. So this is the plan. Here's our chance. A semi-private wrestling match will be hosted by Tatsuo-san. So he's the crime lord in question. Japan's most famous sumo wrestler will face Tatsuo's strongest Oyabun, Katsu Taro. I've been invited and I may bring anyone I wish. This is a great scene here. We've got all of the Yashida clan ninjas standing and sitting around here. We've got this sunken area, which is like a command center in the middle of this particular room. I wonder, did those Japanese characters mean anything specifically? Is Portacio concerned with that level of detail? So in any case, and also here with Mariko again, we have Portacio with that very subtle use of just a few lines, the bags under her eyes, around her mouth, the crow's feet there, just indicating that she is an older woman. She's not as young as Opal. So Mariko says to Jean and Bobby, you will be there as my guests. and I will set up my ninjas to attack and steal Opal back. It will be Yakuza against Yakuza. No American involvement. Iceman says, I don't think it's wise to wait, Mariko. He's a gangster, one of the worst. But she says, the important thing is not to make a splashy rescue and impress her with your powers, is it, Bobby? No, I did not think so. So the important thing is to get her back safely. Mariko has her eye on the wider game that she's playing here. Getting Opal out, but also humiliating Tatsuo. She says, I've been hoping for an opportunity to lessen Tatsuo's power and influence in Japan. Such a public humiliation may just provide it. So she's thinking strategically, not just tactically in respect of getting Opal out, but strategically in terms of reducing Tatsuo's standing in Japan as a crime lord. So several days later, at a stadium in Tokyo, we've got the match now between the sumo wrestling champion and Tatsuo's champion. And up here, way up in the back, we've got Mariko, we've got Jean, and we've got Iceman. And down here, with the better seats, we've got Tatsuo and once again Opal here. And she's dressed in the traditional costume, and she's flanked here by those Oyabun as well. And our, how should we put it, like our honourable Oyabun here, Spice. We still don't have his name yet. Louise Simonson is holding that back for the moment. Up on the balcony, it looks like the gaijin we tossed from the window. No, that's impossible. The tension among us is playing havoc with my nerves. And all gaijin do look the same, he thinks. That's funny. Let's continue. So, here's the two champions. They're getting ready for their match. Opal's grandfather there is ready, are delighted with the prospect. Finally, he will face someone who will test his strength, though the outcome of the match is not in question. But then all my Oyabun have special abilities. Tell me, granddaughter, have you yet chosen one to be your husband? So she says there, I like the way that Portacio has drawn her jutting chin. There's a look of determination on her face. And again, I just feel that there's some life reference or photo reference there for this profile on the face. Not exactly, grandfather, she says, but I have decided what I must do. So she yells out for help. I'm being kidnapped, held against my will. So this is a disaster. Look at this. Again, we've got those Portacio borders whipped out with a marker or brush maybe, indicating this moment of emotional and violent action here as the grandfather slaps his granddaughter with the back of his hand. And we've got the sound effect there by Michael Heisler as well. So, is Iceman going to take this sitting down? Let's turn the page. No, of course not. So he throws off his jacket and reveals himself. But Mariko's disgusted. No, Bobby, all my men are not yet in place. This is a disaster. The best we can hope for now is to keep her alive. Ninjas, attack, she orders. Interesting, Jean doesn't do or say anything throughout this. She's just sitting there, not really acting either. And then Opal hears Bobby call out for her. And she thinks, thank heaven he's alive. He's come to save me after all. But of course, the Obun, they took off their trench coats. So we're going to have a battle royale. Yes, the ninjas dropping down here in the background. And so the fight starts. Simonson describes it here. The cyberpunks lay down a silent barrage of laser fire while on the mound. The sumo wrestler, grabs one of the Oyabun. And the ninjas are tackling the others. Iceman gets involved here. It's great work on this page, I think. Nice action shots and storytelling. Interesting here, another one of these open border panels. But the art now at this point is starting to look a little bit scratchy. The detail isn't quite there as it was before. And this is Portacio coming to the end of the issue and maybe up against a deadline crush. That's my feeling anyway. So the sumo wrestler has the cyberpunk in his grip. And this ninja here, the Yashida clan ninja, says, this better to explain it this way. Sumo wrestler sees that the cyberpunk ninja is frozen, encased in ice. And the Yashida clan ninja says, not now, wrestler. Not how, wrestler. But why would the Gaijin be fool enough to leave so deadly an enemy alive? So the ninja kills the cyberpunk Oyabun. And here in the background, our honourable cyberpunk thinks of Iceman. He meant to spare Fuse. Why? He's our enemy and Opal's lover, but he's honourable, a samurai of his kind. He must die, but I will not shoot him in the back. So this guy's different altogether. And so he shouts out, he calls out to Iceman, Gaijin, turn and face your death. But the ninjas are there to help Iceman out. It's not his death that is imminent, cyberpunk, but yours. So what's going to happen next? He deals with the ninjas easily enough. In mere seconds, Mariko's ninja attackers lay scattered like fallen leaves. And yet, the grandfather Tatsuo there thinks, no matter how many my men slay, others rush to take their place. The odds are too great. I've lost 2 of my techno warriors. I will not lose another, nor will I surrender my granddaughter. And now we learn his name, Hero. You others, get us out of here. So Opal calls out for Bobby and he does likewise. And then Hero cracks Bobby in the chest with some kind of laser blast or plasma blast. And they teleport away. Interesting. Really good twisting of anatomy there on Iceman. And also you get to see this very distinctive way that Portacio renders. That kind of chunky, blocky, ice cubey form of Iceman as well. It looks very good. It looks excellent. And again, he's cutting in white media, maybe paint or something like that, into the action or force lines there in the background of this particular jagged panel here. Nicely done. Final page. Interesting story choice here, or layout choice here. I'll tell you what I mean in a moment. But we're looking down on the scene of destruction here in the stadium, and here, way off in the background, is Jean and Mariko and Iceman. And Mariko says, the arena, my force is devastated, destroyed, and Opal is gone. I've earned Tatsuo's enmity and got nothing in return. You ruined the attack. What can you have been thinking, she says to Iceman. But he protests. And you see, this is the interesting bit. There they are in the background in blue. And now Portacio gives us them here in the foreground on this kind of like open border bottom panel. But we've got Mariko and Jean Grey here up against the first panel on the page, the establishing shot on the page. So Iceman protests, I wasn't. I saw that old monster hit her and I acted. Impetuously, impulsively, says Mariko, of course. But Iceman makes a good point. He makes a very good point here. He says, no, Tatsuo can teleport Mariko, as you saw. He could flee the danger, could steal Opal away whenever he chose. Your plan didn't stand a chance of succeeding. That's, excuse me, a very interesting point. But we still tried it your way and it just plain didn't work. You gave it no chance, she protests, but he says, now, I'll do it my way, by myself. I'm going into Tatsuo's stronghold and I'll bring Opal out of there or die trying. There you go, what a cliffhanger. To be continued. And again, that really cool look that Portacio's designed for Iceman's powers, emanating in a kind of a nimbus, a halo around his clenched fists. Really nicely done. And here we've confirmation on the letters page that after John Bogdanov's work on Extinction Agenda, the new regular artist on X Factor will be Whilce Portacio. So stick around, Whilce is going to take this book to newer and greater artistic heights, and indeed he did. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Whilce Portacio's first issue as the ongoing regular artist on X Factor, number 63. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.